Hello everyone, my name is Oum Saokosal. Today we're gonna learn another design pattern called factory. There are two types of factory method and abstract factory. And in this video, we will learn about the abstract factory. Okay, let's go into it. If you are new, I would like to invite you to subscribe to my channel and click on the notification bell next to it so that in the future you won't miss any tutorial. And let me remind you that you should watch this video until the end. And if you have any question or problem, you can ask me in the comment section down below as well. Okay, so before I go on and write the abstract factory, I will show you how to call it. The best way to write a good pattern is that first you have to understand how you will use it. Because the way you use a little bit strange, it's not like usual. So assume that you have a GUI. Actually, I will explain it where the code came from, but assume that you have a factory and you want to get like a button, a text box, and other tool, and your tool will support both Mac and also Windows, and in the future maybe Linux or maybe web. And as you can see now, you call GUI.getFactory and then you specify an OS as a type, okay? And then you can get an object fact and refer to that. You can create a button, you can create a text box, whatever tool you want, okay? So maybe you have a question like, why you need to do like that? Why don't you just create a button? In this case, the Win button is a regular button, okay? But you have to understand that maybe sometimes you don't want users to access directly to your component. Just like I said in the previous video about the factory method, that you cannot access any tool in Google or maybe in Facebook API. You can use a specific tool that Facebook wants you to use. You cannot just use all, right? So imagine now you are building like a big blob of tool to support Windows, Mac, maybe Linux in the future. So you can let users to call from your factory, and then your factory will have the ability to control whether you want users to access it or not. If not, maybe you just don't let them to use, okay? And another flexibility is that you can just specify an OS, then the whole thing will become another OS type, Actually, Java used this method. Like you can have a button with the same code on Windows and then on Mac and on Linux. Of course, the shape of the button will be different, but it works perfectly, right? So that's how factory works. That's how abstract factory works, okay? So the way of calling is a little bit strange because you cannot access the button directly, you cannot access the text box directly, but then you can change, okay? In the future, you don't have to change any code for a new software. You don't have to change any code for a new OS. What you have to do, you have to write a bunch of code, but the client code will be the same. The point of being a programmer is that we want to make the user happy, right? And the word user here, you should not confuse, because this word, the user, doesn't mean the end user. Now you have to think about three layers. The first one, we are the person that build like a library, a bunch of code, and then let maybe another programmer to use our code, okay? And that programmer, maybe they can create a project, maybe an app for a real end user to use. So the word user here is a programmer, and we now as the library builder, okay? Think about you are creating, like a new framework, maybe a bunch of new library, so that another programmer can reuse our code, our library for that project. Of course, maybe it's not free, like some code on GitHub is free, but the real source code, the real library you can sell, you can have like a commercial use or license, whatever you want. But there's gonna be another topic. But now we are going to do the building first. We don't talk about money, okay? So let's see the code, how you could build the abstract factory. Okay, I will start from the beginning. Okay, so first, before we go to write some code, let's see the diagram, the original diagram of abstract factory. You can just Google like that, and then the best site is Wikipedia. Of course, there are a lot of good tutorials out there, but maybe the original one is better. Okay, so here is the Gang of Four's original class diagram for the abstract factory. This one is the classic one about the GUI. Okay, that's the code that I will introduce you in this example. So you have application, you have GUI factory, and you want to support both Mac and also Windows. But the problem here is that we don't want a user to have to rewrite the code for Mac, the same button for Mac, and also the same code for calling a button, but you have to write different code for Windows, and of course will be Linux, and of course will be web and app, and like the OS coming out, the version of OS coming out. You don't want to let user to do that, because that's gonna be like overwhelming for users. And if you scroll down here, you can see some code for C#, and of course for Java. Okay, so we will get the code from here, the Java code, and we will write it. Okay, so now let's create a new project. Okay, just go to File in Eclipse, and just create a project called Abstract Factory Sample. But actually, you can use this code for any IDE you want, NetBeans or IntelliJ IDEA. But I just comfortable with the Eclipse here, and I create a new package called Kosal Geek, just my website. And then let's create like a file. So the first one gonna be button. Okay. So button here you can use abstract class or interface. So the difference here is just interface doesn't have concrete methods, just all abstract method. And the name, if you want to be the same like the code from Wikipedia, you can just rename to I button. It's easy to see that it is the interface, but actually that is the C# way. In Java you don't do that. But anyway, just follow the code. And there is one method, abstract method, of course, pane. In interface you don't have to specify abstract. And now you have two more, the concrete, what is it? The Win button, and also the OSX button. That is the subclass of the interface. Okay, so for the abstract class we use extends keyword, but for the interface we use implements. And we need to implement the code, of course, the pane. And actually there will be a lot of code in the real project, but now it's just we are learning design pattern. We don't have to write a bunch of code, just system out is is enough. And just say like Windows button, and we will create another concrete button for OSX. So we will call OSX button. To simplify it, just copy and paste. Okay, and now an OSX button, and just change the code a little bit, just to show that this is the Win button and OSX button. And now we need a very important class for our design pattern. It is the abstract factory. In this example, we name it GUI factory. That is the abstract factory. Okay, so what we have to do is that we will let our subclass, the GUI factory subclass, to create a button by themselves. Okay, so the return type here is very important, must be I button. Okay, and then we need another concrete class, of course, and actually two more for the OS X and Windows, and then just call it OS X factory. Okay, the GUI factory there is the abstract factory, and this one is just a factory. Okay, and maybe you want to rename it to the code, like in Wikipedia I just accustomed to write without I, but anyway, just the code. And here we need to implement, and the create button here is the place that you will return a correct button for OS X. Okay, because you don't want user to care about that, we just want to do it for user. Okay, and for the Windows factory, we want to return a correct button as well. And to speed it up, just copy and paste. Okay, and here in the Win factory, we want to return a correct button for the Windows 2. So we must return Win button. Okay, so we have abstract factory, the GUI factory, and we have two concrete factory. Okay, now it's time to use it. In this example, we just use the code directly in the main code, and then you test whether the code is Windows or OS X. But actually, in the real project, in the real world design pattern code, you need another class. Okay, that is a class that tackle with the operating system. Okay, and the way I'm doing is the factory method. So I combine the abstract factory. We have done it, and now I use the factory method to create a correct one, a correct type of OS, and to return the button and to return the text box. Okay, and then you can use string for the type, but in Java you can just easily use enum. So I use enum for this, and I will create OS X as the type for that, and Win. It's easy to test because if you use string, you have to deal with the uppercase, lowercase, maybe type incorrectly. But enum, then you just type and dot, and then you have the suggestion OS X or Win. It's very easy, And now when the type is OS X, then you will return the whole bunch of OS X factory. Okay, and if the type is Win, then you will return the whole bunch of Win factory. Okay, so now it's time to test it. Just create the test class, and imagine the test class here is the user project. Okay, so now you want them to create a button. Okay, so remember the GUI is the place that user can can change the type of OS, and for example now you use Windows. Okay, so return type of GUI, remember, is the GUI factory, GUI factory. Okay, and then just create an object, just user. Okay, and after that you can let user to create a button. Okay, and then they can just use the button. Maybe they can add like an accent, maybe they can have like a name, the text, whatever they want. Okay, and then in this example you have only one method under the button is paint. Okay, and maybe you can create like a user button, and then you can call a method paint from the button. Okay, so if you test that, you can see this is the Windows button. And now when you want to change to OS X, what you have to do is just change the GUI type. Okay, so the whole code will be the same. Now it is the OS X button, and the code below will not change at all. As you can see, now there is no change. Okay, so our client will be happy because they don't have to change any code when you want to change your version. Okay, and actually in my project, the Android project, Android API changed a lot, and we have to cope with that, and it's a headache. Okay, now I want to show you if you want to change, maybe add another component. In this case, you want to add a text box. Okay, so let's create an interface for the text box. There will be some change, of course, but when you see the result, the final code for the client will not change much. Of course, in our side, we will change a lot. The first one is that we will create interface text box, and also we will create two text boxes, one for Windows and one for OS X. Okay, and the code here is just simple. We just want to show you the example of the pattern, no complex code, and the method is show, and the chain here is in the abstract factory, the GUI factory. Okay, we will create another method for users to call when they want to create a text box, and also in our concrete classes, the OS X factory, we need to add the text box too, because we want to return the correct OS X text box. Okay, we don't want to return incorrect one. In Windows, gonna be the same, nothing special, just the return a correct text box too. Okay, there you go. And now let's see the GUI here. Nothing. Okay, nothing changed in the GUI. And let's go to the test abstract again. Remember, the test abstract is for the client. Okay, in our part, in our library, there are a lot of change. You can see that, but in the real client code, nothing changed at all. If you want to create a text box, just call a text box. Okay, nothing changed much. Actually, there is no change except you add some line for the text box. Okay, now you can see a button, a text box for Windows. If you change to OS X, then you will see an OS X button and text box. Okay, so this is the power of abstract factory. Okay, one more thing I want to show you. What if you add the same button, the same text box, but for another operating system, maybe Linux in this example? Okay, so you will add a type, and then of course you will have to test whether it is the Linux, okay, correct one. If it is correct, then what you have to do is just return the whole bunch of Linux factory. Okay, so now we need the Linux factory, of course, and to speed it up, just create the same code. Okay, just change a little bit of that, and of course the Linux factory will be returning the correct button, and also the correct text box for that. And inside the pane, just show Linux button, and here in the text box, Linux text box. Okay, so now in the GUI factory, no change because we don't have any new component. And let's see the client code. What will change? Just a bit of code from OS X to Linux. That's it. Okay, the whole code will be running, no error. Okay, and now let's go back a little bit to our original question. Why we don't let user to create a button directly from our Win button? Remember the Win button, OS X button, text box. Actually, user can just create it because we don't have any restriction. But actually, we have the restriction. Okay, let me show you. Assume now this is the package, the big package, maybe expensive package. Okay, so let's go back to the Win text box, and now let's go and then change the public. Remember, when you delete the public, it means default. Okay, and then only a class inside the same package can call to another class without public. And remember, our package, usually when you ship out, you will compile in a jar file. Okay, So user cannot add any class into the jar file. Okay. Now assume that you have the package, and then now you have another project package. To speed it up, just create a test class. Assume that in the test class you will call a real package, and now that is the real deal. You want to call a factory from our library package. Okay, and as soon as you call the GUI, the IDE just import the GUI class from our project to here. Okay, and then you can create a button, and call the method pane. And now let's see that you want to create a win button. Okay, and now you are in a different package, and our package, the package that contain all the GUI, all the win button, is in another package, and it is in another jar. And how can you access the win button? Because you don't want to allow people to access your library. Okay, and what they have to do is to create the factory first. Okay, even the win text box, you cannot use that. Okay, and that is the way to restrict that. So not only that abstract class are gonna be very flexible, but actually abstract class can encapsulate your whole deal, your whole core of your library. Secretly people have to go through a class, and then maybe add some authentication, then they can use the control. Okay, so that's it for this video. I hope you like it. If you have any question, just ask me in the comment section down below. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in the next video.